As is customary at the start of every year, the world's top leaders have offered New Year's greetings to their respective countries and beyond. Taking to Twitter, U.S. President Donald Trump reiterated his common theme, vowing to make America great again in 2018. He also posted a video and added more tweets promoting his achievements since moving into the White House. He touted his administration's passage of a sweeping tax cuts plan, the strength of the stock market, and its tough immigration policies.
Happy New Year, everybody. I think you're going to go in and take some pictures of the crowd. Great crowd. We're going to have a great year. It's going to be a fantastic 2018. We're off to a very good start, as you know, with the great tax cuts and Anwar and getting rid of the individual mandate, which was very, very unpopular, as you know. But we are going to have a tremendous year. The stock market, I think, is going to continue to go up. Companies are going to continue to come into the country.
Chinese President Xi Jinping praised his achievements made by the Chinese people and pledged that China will abide by international rules. He said he seeks a new era for China and will continue to support the United Nations, while working to raise living standards for its people. French President Emmanuel Macron proposed to start a French Renaissance and warned against falling prey to nationalism. He also underscored the importance of a united Europe, saying France cannot succeed without a strong Europe. German Chancellor Angela Merkel pledged to swiftly form a new government and to fulfill the needs of all German citizens. Like Macron, Merkel also emphasized that the EU should stick together more than ever as Britain prepares to leave. With heightened tensions and uncertainties around the world, the leaders hope their messages can ensure that 2018 gets off on the right track.
The UN Secretary-General has issued a so-called red alert to the world. Speaking in his year-end address, the former Portuguese Prime Minister warned of deepening conflict and raised anxieties about nuclear weapons. After a year in the job, he said that the world had gone in reverse.
On New Year's Day 2018, I'm not issuing an appeal. I'm issuing an alert, a red alert for our world. Conflicts have deepened and new dangers have emerged. Global anxieties about nuclear weapons are the highest since the Cold War, and climate change is moving faster than we are. Inequalities are growing, and we see horrific violations of human rights. Nationalism and xenophobia are on the rise, and as we begin 2018, I call for unity.
During the year, the Secretary-General had also warned about the risk of ethnic cleansing after the surge of Rohingya Muslims fleeing Myanmar to seek refuge in neighbouring Bangladesh.
On Monday, Pope Francis described migrants and refugees as the world's weakest and most needy. Using his traditional New Year's address to give voice to people, he has urged leaders to do more to help. Francis reminded thousands gathered in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican that he had chosen the plight of migrants and refugees as the theme for the Roman Catholic Church's World Day of Peace. Francis said, "Please let us not extinguish the hope in their hearts. Let us not suffocate their hopes for peace."
Well, the standoff between Washington and Pyongyang is set to continue in 2018, with North Korea's leader targeting the US in his New Year's speech. Kim Jong-un stressed he had the nuclear button at hand.
The entire US mainland is within the range of our nuclear strike, and the button is always on the table in my office. They should clearly know that this is certainly not a threat, but rather a reality.
Now, former US Ambassador to the United Nations John Bolton has dismissed North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's comment about having a nuclear launch button on his desk as nothing more than propaganda. Speaking on the Fox News channel on Monday, Bolton said the preemptive option should be used if Pyongyang doesn't give up its nuclear weapons program, but the US also has to see exactly what the North's capabilities are. Bolton also warned President Trump that the US has very little time left to make a decision on what to do or face a future with North Korea as a nuclear state.
We enter the fifth day of massive nationwide protests in Iran. Reports show that Iranians are more than ready for a regime change, and Israeli officials are wishing them luck. Israeli Intelligence Minister Israel Katz wished, quote, "success to the protesters in Iran who are fighting for freedom and democracy," end quote. He also responded to Iranian regime threats, stating that he predicted Israel will last forever, while the Iranians' quote, "murderous regime will disappear long before," end quote. The Ayatollahs in power in Iran are now facing demonstrations across the country that began Thursday over economic problems, but have quickly snowballed into something much grander. Those reminded of the bloody government retaliation against anti-corruption demonstrations in Iran in 2009 have joined in and stoked the fire. In a surprise interview on Israeli television last night, one Iranian protester who spoke under pseudonym Musan and with a blurred image said he was there at the 2009 protests and that after nearly another decade of government abuses, quote, the people are taking to the streets and demanding their rights, end quote, adding that this time they know that, quote, only if the regime falls will the people get what they ought to get.
Protesters are critical of the government's support for the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas in the occupied Palestinian territory. The Iranian government says foreign entities are fomenting violent and deadly clashes. Among the dead, 2 people, 1 a boy, hit by a fire truck in what's been described as an accident. Authorities say it was stolen and abandoned.
Through investigations, we came to know there is a clear role played by the foreign intelligence agencies and the government opposition in these killings. The police never opened fire on the protesters.
Moscow has warned against foreign meddling. It says it considers the mass unrest in Iran as an internal affair, stressing that external interference destabilizing the situation is inadmissible. Meanwhile, the UK has called for Iran to engage in a meaningful debate about the issues raised by the protesters.
The Israeli Foreign Ministry believes the protests in Iran could threaten the stability of the Islamic Republic regime. That's according to Israel's Channel 10. A classified memo warns the escalation suggests the Iranian people's fear barrier has been breached. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied claims that Israel was behind the protests, wishing the Iranian people success in their noble quest for freedom.
Iran's President Rouhani's claim that Israel is behind the protests in Iran. It's not only false, it's laughable. And unlike Rouhani, I will not insult the Iranian people. They deserve better. Brave Iranians are pouring into the streets. They seek freedom, they seek justice, they seek the basic liberties that have been denied to them for decades.
The United States is threatening fresh sanctions if there's a violent crackdown on the protesters in Iran. The Wall Street Journal reports the Trump administration is lobbying the international community to support the Iranian people's right to peaceful protest. Those sanctions could target the Islamic Revolutionary Guard to minimize the fallout on the protesters themselves. US President Donald Trump demanded time for change on Twitter, saying the Iranian people had been repressed for many years. The European Union told Iran it expects the right to peaceful demonstration and freedom of expression to be guaranteed.
Mahmoud Abbas visits the grave of the former leader of the Palestinians, Yasser Arafat. There is anger here in Ramallah. The Palestinian envoy to the United States is being recalled for what's being described as consultations. The announcement comes weeks after Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. On Sunday, the Palestinian president called Jerusalem the eternal capital of the Palestinian people. We're here to stay and won't leave, he says. We shan't repeat the stupid mistakes of the past. We're here until Palestine is liberated and Jerusalem, God willing, will be the capital of Palestine. The status of the city goes right to the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
The Israeli parliament has voted to require a legislative supermajority to relinquish sovereignty over any part of Jerusalem. The law would obstruct any future government trying to divide Jerusalem as part of a peace deal with the Palestinians. The law would require a 2/3 majority to do so. The bill's sponsor said it would prevent concessions as part of diplomatic deals, insisting Jerusalem will never be on the negotiating table. Israel insists Jerusalem is its eternal undivided capital, but the Palestinians claim its eastern sector as the capital of their future state.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party has unanimously called on legislators to effectively annex Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, land Palestinians want for a future state. The move could streamline procedures for their construction and expansion. The land is currently under a military jurisdiction.
ואנחנו, כשנחיל את הזכות הזו ונחיל את הריבונות, לא נעשה זאת בזכות.
Now we will promote this right and this sovereignty. We will not do it through our power, we will do it, as you quite rightly say, through the strength of our historical right, our religious right, our moral right, our biblical right. And the time has come to manifest this right. The expansion of Jewish settlements on land seized from the Palestinians in the 1967 war is a major obstacle to peace talks, and their construction and growth until now has served to isolate Palestinian communities, making a future Palestinian state with coherent borders more difficult. The UN considers this land as occupied, but a formal annexation would see Israel claim it entirely for the first time. The Palestinians have long stated annexation of any occupied lands was a red line Israel should not cross at its peril. However, Israel's politicians appear to have lost patience and seem supported by the White House in taking a more aggressive line.
On Monday, the White House said that it will continue to withhold $255 million in military aid to Pakistan. This out of frustration over what it has characterized as Islamabad's obstinance in confronting terrorist networks. A National Security Council spokesman said, "The president has made clear that the United States expects Pakistan to take decisive action against terrorists and militants on its soil." The administration first said in August it was temporarily withholding the $255 million. The massive sum was part of a $1.1 billion aid package authorized in 2016 by Congress.
Every so often, Earth's rotation slows down or speeds up by a few microseconds. While the changes don't affect us directly, some scientists think recent slowdowns could be a sign of big earthquakes to come. In a new study, researchers looked at every earthquake since 1900 that registered a magnitude of 7 or larger, and saw an uptick in the number of big quakes about every 32 years. They also noticed an unusual pattern. Earth's rotation would slow about 5 years before every cluster of earthquakes. The scientists can't explain for sure how the slower rotations led to more severe earthquakes yet. They suggest the small changes between Earth's crust and liquid core might be the culprit. But considering Earth's most recent slowing period started more than 4 years ago, researchers say 2018 is ripe for severe earthquakes. It's unclear just how many more there'll be. But one of the study's authors told The Guardian we could easily have 20 a year starting in 2018. That's more than 3 times the number of significant magnitude 7 or higher earthquakes so far in 2017.
Hong Kong has kicked off 2018 with a big pro-democracy demonstration. Thousands marched through the city, calling for its autonomy to be protected from what they say is growing pressure from Beijing. The former British colony enjoys rights and freedoms unseen in mainland China under a one-country, two-systems deal struck 20 years ago. But the jailing of prominent activists and the removal of pro-democracy legislators from office has fueled fears of losing this special status.
In 2017 is the year for Hong Kongers to learn how to overcome their fear from President Xi. In 2018, it's time for us to recognize ourselves as an Avengers to win back the things that we eroded by Beijing.
The local government said it respected people's right to protest just days after Beijing ruled that part of a future rail station in the city would come under mainland law.
United Nations peacekeepers say security forces have killed at least 7 protesters in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Protesters want President Joseph Kabila to step down from office. Catholic churches had called for peaceful demonstrations after Sunday Mass. What we're living through is not democracy. We were in church in the middle of prayer, and in the moment that the priest lifted the Eucharist, they shot tear gas. Kabila's presidential mandate ended in December 2016, and he had agreed to hold an election by the end of 2017. Former European Commissioner Louis Michel. He's the one who told the international community that Kabila is a serious man. So Louis Michel needs to come and get Kabila and leave, since his mandate is over. Authorities have banned demonstrations and said that gatherings of more than 5 people will be dispersed. All internet and SMS services have been cut until further notice. UN observers say they've documented more than 120 arrests across the country and a number of serious injuries.
Major violence in a jailbreak in Brazil. 9 inmates were killed and 14 injured in a prison riot near the capital, Brasilia. One of the victims was decapitated. 106 prisoners escaped. Most are still on the run. The head of Brazil's prison guard union complained only 5 guards were assigned to watch over 900 prisoners. Brazil's prisons experience endemic violence and suffer severe overcrowding.
More than 700 people have reportedly escaped from being held by Nigeria's Boko Haram militants. According to a Nigerian army spokesman, the detainees fled from several islands in Lake Chad and arrived in the town of Monguno in Borno State. Details of how and when they got away have not been released, but the escapees are said to be farmers, fishermen and their families who were all held as farm workers. The military claims Boko Haram has been weakened by a recent armed forces operation known as Deep Punch 2. An intelligence operation is now underway to ensure that no militants are among the group.
More than 100 illegal migrants from Gambia have been sent home from Libya by the UN's migration agency. It's part of the International Organization for Migrants' voluntary return program. The migrants left Misrata airport on a one-way flight back to Gambia in a bid to ease severe overcrowding in Libya's detention centres. The number of people stuck in Libya rose dramatically last year after armed groups largely shut down the boat route to Italy. The IOM has stepped up its Libya program, evacuating up to 15,000 in the final month of 2017. The deportations come in the wake of a CNN report on migrants being sold for slave labour that sparked an international outcry.
Next to the green rush in the Golden State, California opening 2018 with its first legal recreational marijuana sale. But not everyone is celebrating the new cash crop. ABC News senior national correspondent Matt Gutman reports from Southern California.
Tonight in California, they're lining up to light up.
We've been looking forward to this day for a long time, haven't we?
Marijuana today became legal to buy and possess for anyone 21 and over. Lines forming outside dispensaries from Oakland to San Diego.
We were here at about 5 o'clock this morning. It's history.
And business is set to boom in what's expected to be a $7 billion industry in the state. And tonight, dispensaries are bracing for the rush.
We're getting ready. We have 5 new registers, 6 new bud tenders.
These stores now offer cannabis coffee, cookies, candy, even dog treats. But easy access makes the California Highway Patrol uneasy.
You can look at the states that have legalized it, and they've seen an uptick in collisions and fatal collisions. So it's definitely a concern for us.
Tom, with legality come taxes. The California pot industry is expected to generate over $1 billion in taxes. Now, some of that is already earmarked towards marijuana research, education, and drug treatment programs.
Millions of Americans are battling dangerously low temperatures as a cold outbreak continues to freeze much of the U.S. According to the Weather Channel, dozens of daily record low temperatures have been set across the Midwest, South, and East. Over the weekend, dozens of cities in North Dakota and Minnesota saw wind chills between 45 and 55 degrees below zero. And New York City had its second coldest New Year's Eve ball drop on record. At least 4 people have died as a result of these frigid conditions. Meteorologists say the U.S. could see more of the same bitter cold throughout the first week of 2018.
This is a rare view that few outsiders witness. A secret meeting of Iranian Christians in a neighboring country not far from the border. These brand new followers of Christ receive Bible teaching and participate in their very first communion.
Thank you for the blood of Jesus.
After a few songs and prayers, several are baptized.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Then it's back for more late-night Bible study and training before returning to Iran. For the first time, these Christians learn how to look up and memorize scripture. They're Kurds, former Muslims who converted to Christianity. If their identities and this location is revealed to secret police, Iranian agents would come and arrest them. Some may even be killed for being apostates. This former Muslim, we will call Daoud, knows the dangers all too well. Before he became a Christian, Iranian police caught him eating a sandwich instead of fasting during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan. That violated Sharia law, and a judge ordered him to receive 70 lashes, punishment similar to that imposed by the Taliban.
I was tied down. A mullah held the Quran in his hand and recited a verse, and then a soldier beat my back with a cable. It made me feel deep hatred against Islam and the Islamic Republic of Iran. All I did was grab a sandwich and eat it. Why is that a sin?
Later, Daoud met some Christians on the internet who introduced him to Christ. He embraced Christianity after witnessing miracles of healing and deliverance. Daoud keeps his newfound faith secret, while quietly and cautiously sharing Christ with others in his city.
Right now, it is really scary because if the government knows about it, I'm pretty sure they will execute me.
Another former Muslim turned Christian, Reza, says he shares his faith because he wants Iranians to live in the light. While President Rouhani promises societal reforms, Reza says an aggressive government crackdown against Christians continues.
Iranian agents come and arrest us, saying that we are spies for Western countries. They say, because of that, you are a traitor to your country and should be executed.
In fact, few of the 40 or so known Christians imprisoned in Iran have been charged as apostates or for spreading the gospel. The official charge is usually espionage or undermining national security. Security police arrested 35-year-old Iranian Christian Farshid Fatih during a Christmas raid against house churches in 2010. He is serving 6 years in Iran's infamous Evin prison. David Yegnazar of Elam Ministries says a prison guard recently broke Farshid's foot during a mass inmate assault. The foot went untreated for 3 days.
But Farshid wrote a very beautiful letter saying that it was an incredible moment for him because he was in this pain over the Easter weekend, and it gave him a very different view of the whole Easter story. And finally having some relief on the Sunday morning was great.
He went on to say, "We forgive them for all they have done, because we are followers of the one who says, 'Father, please forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing.'" Yegnazar says the Iranian church continues to grow in Iran, despite or perhaps because of the inhumane treatment of prisoners like Farshid and Saeed.
Their courage means that the church continues to grow. So it's really, although it's a story of suffering, there's also a story of growth in the church in Iran.
Iran has one of the fastest-growing Christian populations in the world. Evangelist Reza says more and more Iranians tell him they've grown tired of the oppressive policies of the Ayatollahs.
People feel a hunger and a thirst to know the truth. When I talk to them about Christ and tell them how God loves us, they become so excited and they just keep smiling.
Riding on the clouds, shining like the sun, at the trumpet.